All right, welcome out to our Momentum Mindset Monday, and it's good to see a good turnout here, and keep adding a couple more people in as we get this started. Okay, so our topic today, fun one, talk about boundaries. For some people, boundaries maybe comes across like a swear word, and you're like, I don't believe in that stuff. But boundaries are a difference maker in your real estate business. So whatever you have had as boundaries up till now, if you're looking at moving your business forward, it will require some additional new boundaries that are put in place to help you get to the next level in your business. What I think is kind of ironic and kind of interesting is, as people look to move their businesses forward, oftentimes they try to be more appealing to everybody. Like they try to be the answer for everyone, or what they do oftentimes is they try to find more people that will say yes to them, right? I mean, that's kind of the approach. So especially when you get into a market like this. So as you step into a market right now, it's not uncommon to feel like you need to get more clients. And you're thinking, okay, I've got to get more people to work with. I've got to get into a place where I can start to work with additional clientele, and I'm not getting enough clientele right now. So the natural response, the natural thing that we start to think of as humans is, well, I've just got to be more appealing. So that means I've got to just adjust what I've had in the past, and maybe I just got to maybe lower what I've done, and maybe I got to adjust my price point down, or I've got to be more compelling, and I've got to do more to get in front of more people. I've got to, and the natural response is to lower whatever we've had as past standards, or whatever our boundaries are, to be more accepting. So the thought is, well, if I want more people to say yes, then I have to be willing to drop things to become that kind of person. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, because in all reality, and I shared this on Facebook yesterday, I put a post out there about this paradox, where in reality, what I found is that it's not about dropping your standards. In fact, I would say it's the reverse of that. It's the inverse philosophy, which is when times become tight, what becomes more critical is to up our standards and to become more firm with who we are, and then double down on that, which is counterintuitive for so many people, because when you don't feel like there are enough people saying yes, well, we want to be able to drop things to be able to get more people to say yes. But let's talk a little bit about what that starts to entail and create. So this idea of boundaries is, the first thought I want to share with you is this idea of boundaries define us. They define what is me, what is not me. A boundary shows me where I end and someone else begins, leading me to a sense of ownership. Knowing that I am to own and take responsibility for giving me freedom. So there's this thought around this, and I let that last line, which is knowing what I am to own and take responsibility for gives me freedom. So this idea of like creating boundaries really is designed around being able to move yourself forward, but sometimes it feels like we're taking a step back. In fact, sometimes when you put a standard in place, or you put a boundary in place, it feels like we're cutting things off. It feels like we're creating like a situation where we're putting walls up. And how can putting walls up actually be in our best interest when we're cutting things and we're starting to set this defined approach with relationships? So let's talk a little bit about maybe some ideas of when you might need to start to create some boundaries. So if you find yourself in any of these following situations, there might be a time to start to set some boundaries, or to redefine and up-level your boundaries. So number one, you feel annoyed when others place demands on your time. So you find yourself in relationships where people are demanding of your time, and they're starting to pull that from you. So you feel annoyed by that. Number two, you have trouble sleeping because your mind is whirling. So you have all these things going on, and you're just not getting enough sleep. So you're starting to stress about it. You're feeling anxiety. You're feeling you're not feeling much peace. You're feeling like in this weird space right now. Next, you feel burnt out. You're exhausted. At the end of the day, even at the beginning of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, kidding me? Again? I don't know how much more of this I can take. Number 4, your relationships are suffering. And maybe that's in other places of your life. Maybe there's situations that are happening where you're feeling so stressed, so much emotion that's being drained in certain aspects of life. So the other parts of your life they're suffering from that. Then lastly, you feel like you're being pulled in a million directions. So no matter what you're doing, you're feeling like you can't get everything done. It's just a feeling of overwhelm. It's a feeling of just too many commitments that you have in your life. If you find yourself at any of these things, no, welcome to real estate. That's what we do. I mean, this is like a normal approach, a normal thing for many of us to deal with this stuff. But what I want to put some light on and shed some awareness to is it doesn't have to be the norm. You don't have to accept all these things to become a top producer in this industry. In fact, the more you can recognize this and have awareness to it, the more you can start to shut these things off and start to look at redefining how you work. So I would avoid people who mess with your head, people who intentionally and repeatedly do and say things that will upset you. Number 3, I would avoid people who expect you to expect you to prioritize them, but refuse to prioritize you. But they're always first in line. In fact, I jokingly say those are people who are always after a win-win situation. They just need to have both wins. I would avoid people who can't and won't apologize sincerely. And then lastly, I would avoid people who act like the victim when confronted with their abusive behavior. So when you shine a light on however this situation is and whatever the relationship is, they feel threatened. And how dare you bring that up? Because now they're the victim in that process. So the only people who get upset about you setting boundaries are the ones who were benefiting from you having none. So when you didn't have any boundaries, or when your boundaries were different, they benefited from it. But how dare you make change in your life? How dare you do that? Because that is not in their best interest. Although it probably is in their best interest to start to realize that they can't treat other people that way. Boundaries are statements of what we will or will not tolerate. The goal of a boundary isn't to change another's behavior, but to create safety and integrity for ourselves. So what starts to happen is, we're putting these walls up. And as we put these walls up, we're actually giving ourselves safety and space. So just recently, about 2 months ago, I had the chance to go to Croatia. Went to this city called Dubrovnik, which is an amazing place. In fact, that's where a lot of the Game of Thrones show was shot. But Dubrovnik is this city right around the coastline, and it is a walled city. There's this giant wall all around the city, and there are only 2 entrances in and out of the city. But what's amazing with that giant wall is that they've had that wall for centuries, and that it's designed not only to keep people out, but it also is designed to be able to have safety with the people that are inside. Now, how often do we set walls to protect ourselves, and yet the people on the outside feel threatened because all we're trying to do is create safety for ourselves? There will be times when you set boundaries that you'll have other people throw temper tantrums. They'll throw fits. And if someone throws a fit because you set a boundary, it's just more evidence that the boundary is needed. Now, there will be times in your business that you'll have to set some boundaries up. There'll be times you have to start to set some standards of what it looks like. The most popular or most common phrase that I say in my initial consultation, we'll be talking a little bit about the deep dive of setting boundaries in your business on our next traction event in December. That will clearly outline out what it looks like to have standards with clients from the very beginning. And we'll outline out what the boundaries are. One of the boundaries that I have when I meet with clients is as I'm talking to them, I just explain to them that this is the way that I work. Now, there are many times that people will ask me to do other things, and I appreciate them asking me that. I still will do what I need to do to take the next step in the process. So as I meet with someone and we have our closing talk tracks, when we have that initial consultation, I'll say, okay, great, we've met and look forward to working with you. So here are the next steps in the process of working with me. And that's just what the standard is of working with me. Now, they do not have to accept those standards. I'm okay with that. In fact, I'm totally fine with that. Because I know what I need to do to be able to help someone, And I also know what I need to do to be able to have my own sanity in the process. Because I've worked with many, many people over the years who are not sane. To be honest, I've learned over time that even crazy people have to live somewhere. So that doesn't mean I have to deal with their crazy to help them get into a house or get out of a house. I just have to do the way that I know how to help them, because that will keep my sanity. Now in their world, they might just deal with total chaos, and I can appreciate that. And they can be in chaos. It does not mean I have to be in chaos to be able to help them. In fact, I can be the calm, or I can be in the eye of the storm, and they can be as chaotic as they want to. I'm just not going to be pulled into their chaos. But it's going to be hard because oftentimes we are such a group of people, especially in our brokerage, that we're very giving, that we want to help people, that we want to be able to do whatever we can to help them get to where they want to go. And maybe we're even feeling like, well, I got to work with these clients in a certain way because I need the business. Like I need to work with more people. But just because you need to work with people doesn't mean you have to work on their terms. Doesn't mean you have to work according to how they need you to work. So you've got to start to set some boundaries, some standards. And we'll have some more discussion around this over the next several weeks. Because what I'm seeing right now is the market starts to adjust and change. And people are feeling moments of scarcity and they're feeling stretched. It's normal to feel like you have to lower all their standards to work with everybody on their terms. But the minute you lower your standards to a point where you have none, then you're no longer attractive. Like you've lost your competitive advantage and you've lost your ability to stand out in the marketplace, because the majority of people are going to drop all their standards. So if you want to be different and you want to stand out, it means you have to embrace the idea of knowing what your worth is. And we're going to see a market over the next year or two that will greatly benefit those who know their worth, who are willing to stand for their worth and willing to stand for their value. And if you don't feel that you have worth, then your clients and your consumers and your prospects are going to push on that to a point where you just work for free. That you can do everything for free, and they're going to expect you to do that. And they're going to think that you're going to be excited about it. So as you start to move your business, your boundaries are going to be set with your prospects, your clients, with other agents, with vendors, with our own families. Our families especially, as you step into real estate, now what's required of you is to become a better version of you. Like you have to become a better version of you, but that will create some distance from other people in your life, both friends and family members who have always seen you as a certain version of you. So as you start to look at creating additional standards and you start to put things in place of how you work with people and how you protect your time and how you are moving your business forward, you will get pushback from people in your life who are going to try to pull you back to how you were. They'll use phrases like, don't you remember who you were? And they'll maybe tease you about like you changing and not like don't you remember like who we are? Like just giving you all the grief. And it's their insecurity and them feeling awkward and uncomfortable because you're growing. So you've got to recognize that. In fact, when I moved into real estate and started moving my business forward, I got a lot of pushback from various people, both people in my family. I got pushback from some of my good friends because they just looked at me different. And I was growing and changing, but it was just them trying to hold me back because it was in their best interest, or at least they thought it was in their best interest because it made them more comfortable if I didn't grow and improve myself. And what I found is I just had to create new friends who were supporters, friends who I could be around that encouraged me to become a better version of me. And now those are my core group of people that are inspirations and people who push and they challenge me to become better versus the ones who give me grief because I've moved my business forward or moved my life forward. And you will have plenty of opportunity to deal with people who are not going to be comfortable with you growing. And it's really easy to use as an excuse to not grow. But the thing is, you can't make them all grow. You can't make everybody else become better. You've got to step into the uncomfortable. You've got to be the one who breaks the chains, the one who becomes a trendsetter in your sphere and in your relationships. And you will be around people who are going to be supportive of you growing and improving upon yourself to get to where you need to go. So here's some simple ways of setting some boundaries with clients. Communicate clearly and effectively. Be clear about your working hours. Set standards about what you want to do. You can work whenever you want. I don't care. We don't give you any standards you have to work. If you want to take a day off a week, great. I encourage that. If you want to take evenings off, whatever you want to do, like you pick your hours and you decide what those are. But the minute you make a decision of what your hours are, you'll have people pushing against it. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. If you say, I'm going to take Wednesday nights off, then probably the next week or two, you're going to have somebody who wants to meet you on a Wednesday night. Just know that there will be people there that are going to push against your standard and test you to see, is that really going to be a standard for you? Next, stick to your standards, policies, and your business practices. Don't feel bad to take ownership of their choices. So they're going to make choices. Your clients and your prospects will make many decisions. They're the decision makers, but it does not mean that you have to pick up the pieces of their decisions. If they make poor decisions, which many of them do, you are not responsible for those decisions because you are not on title. You're not the heroic savior of all of their faults or mistakes or missteps. That's not on you. That's ridiculous to think that you have that much capacity to take on everybody else's poor choices of whatever they've done. Then lastly, be firm yet kind and professional. And when I say like having standards, we taught a lot last week on our traction events. It's not about saying no. It's about saying yes and. What I mean by that is like people can ask you different things and you can just thank them for asking what those things are and then offer a solution or offer something else. Doesn't mean you have to agree to their terms. Just find some other options that they can look at. We have some clients right now that are looking at selling a property. And we have many calls over the weekend on various things, and we'll share some future calls about some negotiating tactics when you're dealing with multiple people that are decision makers. But I just let them talk. They say all their different things, and some of the things I don't agree with, I just wait for them to all say what they want to do. I said, great, based on what you guys have said, here are some options, and here are the pros and cons of what you guys have said so far. And I'm the guide to kind of outline out the next steps to help them. And the majority of people are going to make good decisions if they have the right information to help them get to where they want to go. So again, it's not about just saying no to everybody. It's just about being firm in where you are and just offering other solutions that don't involve you sacrificing your standards. That's the kind of the summary of what boundaries look like. And we'll wrap it up with this final thought, that you need to love yourself enough to set boundaries. Your time and energy are precious. You get to choose how you use it. You teach people how to treat you by deciding what you will and won't accept. So you will get some pushback when you start to put standards in place. And that's okay, because you're just retraining the world how you want to be treated. And there's going to be some adjustment to it. You're going to be putting some different things in place, and you're just going to move into a next version of you, which is great. And there's nothing wrong with you becoming a better version of you. In fact, it is required for you to become better. Like, you will not succeed in 2024 if you embrace the current version of you and think that that's good enough. No, it's not good enough. I mean, not good enough for any of us. Like the 2020 or the 2021 version of me, not good enough to survive in 2024. I mean, maybe like we look decent, but not good, not standing out. Like, it requires all of us to become a better version of ourselves. And that starts with really putting some boundaries in place of how we want to be treated and respected.